Summer Solstice issue of United Nations Week, News and Views. My name's John Kerry. The views expressed here are mine alone unless I indicate some other source. First, I want to point out to you what you probably haven't come across in any other news source, and that is how last week 2 American women were honored by high-level appointments at the UN. First of all, Judge Marilyn Kamen won election to the UN's Internal Dispute Tribunal. She has been for 10 years a member of the Hennepin County District Court in the state of Minnesota. She served for over a year in the UN Special Court for Kosovo, the breakaway southern portion of Serbia. On June 18th, the Secretary General announced the appointment of Joan Elise Dubinsky as Director of the Ethics Office. Since June of 2009, Ms. Dubinsky served as Director of Ethics for HAE Systems, Inc., charged with integrating its ethics systems in the United States and United Kingdom. From 2004 to 2009, she served as the Chief Executive Officer, Ethics Officer for the International Monetary Fund, where she had institution-wide accountability for advising, guiding, communicating, and enforcing the fund's values and standards. Now I want to turn to the ICRC report on the Gaza blockade. I assume that you know something about the ICRC, its history, and its standing as a totally impartial, humanitarian, universally recognized organization. I mention that to show that we're probably not going to get any investigation of the Gaza blockade that's any more impartial than this one. I'm going to quote portions of it, far from all of it, but I want to give you an idea what's in it. Quote, as the ICRC has stressed repeatedly, the dire situation in Gaza cannot be resolved by providing humanitarian aid. The closure imposed on the Gaza Strip is about to enter its 4th year, choking off any real possibility of economic development. Gazans continue to suffer from unemployment, poverty, and warfare, while the quality of Gaza's healthcare system has reached an all-time low. The whole of Gaza's population is being punished for acts for which they bear no responsibility. The closure, therefore, constitutes a collective punishment imposed in clear violation of Israel's obligations under international humanitarian law. Under international humanitarian law, Israel must ensure that the basic needs of Gazans, including adequate health care, are met. The Palestinian authorities, for their part, must do everything within their power to provide proper health care, supply electricity, and maintain infrastructure for Gaza's people. Furthermore, all states have an obligation to allow and facilitate rapid and unimpeded passage of all relief consignments, equipment, and personnel. Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit is about to enter his 5th year of captivity. Hamas has continued to rebuff the ICRC's request to let it visit Gilad Shalit. In violation of international humanitarian law, it has also refused to allow him to get in touch with his family. The ICRC again urges those detaining Gilad Shalit to grant him the regular contact with his family to which he is entitled. It also reiterates that those detaining him have an obligation to ensure that he is well treated and that his living conditions are humane and dignified. Gaza's fishermen have been greatly affected by successive reductions imposed by Israel on the size of the fishing grounds they are allowed to exploit. The latest restriction to 3 nautical miles has cut down both the quantity and quality of the catch. As a result, nearly 90% of Gaza's 4,000 fishermen are now considered either poor or very poor. In their struggle to survive, the fishermen have little choice but to sail into no-go zones at the risk of being shot by the Israeli Navy. Gaza is suffering from an acute electricity crisis. The power supply in Gaza is interrupted for 7 hours a day on the average. The consequences for public services, especially the primary health care system, are devastating. Hospitals rely on generators to cope with the daily blackouts. The state of the health care system in Gaza has never been worse, says Eileen Daly, the ICRC's health coordinator in the territory. Quote, she says, health is being politicized. That is the main reason the system is failing. Unless something changes, things are only going to get even worse. Thousands of patients could go without treatment, and the long-term outlook will be increasingly worrisome. And there's another quote, this from Javier Cordoba, who oversees ICRC's water and sanitation activities in Gaza. He says the current situation is critical and may lead to an irreversible trend in the degradation of underground fresh water. Large-scale projects such as the construction of a desalination plant must be undertaken to meet the water supply needs without further exposing the aquifer. The closure must be lifted so that the $4.5 billion pledged by donor countries over a year ago can be put to use. The ICRC continues to work on upgrades for the Rafah wastewater treatment plant, which will eventually serve some 170,000 people. However, to finish the work, certain materials must be allowed in through the crossing points. The upgrades, once completed, will result not only in a safer and more healthful environment for the population, but also in treated wastewater clean enough to seep into and refresh the aquifer, which remains the sole source of drinking water in the Gaza Strip. Over 800 Gazan detainees in Israel prisons have been prevented from meeting face-to-face with their loved ones since June 2007, when Israel suspended the ICRC's family visit program. To mitigate the effects of this measure, the ICRC has doubled its own visits to Gazan detainees and stepped up its efforts to maintain family links by delivering written and oral messages between detainees and their families. That's all that I'm quote from the ICRC report. I want to turn now and show you a June 15th photo of ethnic Uzbeks waiting on the border village of Sarabash, hoping to enter Uzbekistan after fleeing violence in Osh, Kyrgyzstan. Fighting between Kyrgyz and Uzbeks began in Osh on June 10th, resulting in the death of 174 people. And now we close with a UN June 16th photo by Albert Gonzalez Farran of a mother holding her infant child during a medical examination at a newly reopened clinic in West Darfur. A year ago, April, a community of refugees returned to their homes in the village of Saraf Jedad, where they rebuilt a school, reopened businesses and the local market, with help from the African Union UN hybrid operation in Darfur known as UNAMID. Friends, that's all for this June 21st summer solstice issue of United Nations Week News and Views. We'll be back with the next issue. Meantime, do send along your own views on UN issues to www.unweek.blogspot.com. Goodbye for now, and thanks very much for watching.